Welcome back to Be the Good with Kate, the show that inspires each of us to see how we have the power to make a difference all around us. Each episode highlights an individual doing good in the world while following their passions, good for their own souls and for others. I get so excited about sharing each and every episode of Be the Good with you, and I hope you enjoy these people and stories. If you're new here, welcome, and if you are returning, thank you so much for your support. I'm so glad you found Be the Good with Kate and would love to hear from you. If you're finding value in these episodes, I invite you to share with someone who could also use this dose of good news, or tag me on social with your favorite quote from the episode. Every share, subscriber, review, and comment helps me to share these guests' wonderful work to more people. Thank you for your help in this. Now, on to this week's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world. Today on Be the Good with Kate, I have Sheila Duncan, who is the co-creator of the popular character Trouble the dog and author of 3 children's books. Trouble is a huggable plush toy that has provided comfort to thousands of people around the world, from victims of tragedies to patients in hospitals to kids who have nightmares or just had a bad day and need a hug. Trouble the dog has been applauded by CNN and MSNBC as a socially conscious comfort toy, a gift that gives back, and a therapy dog by the Boston Herald. Trouble is also successfully utilized as a comfort resource in play therapy sessions for children receiving services through Catholic Charities. Sheila will tell us more about how Trouble came to be and everything that she has been up to. Thank you so much, Sheila, for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, well, right back at you. And Sheila, I gave people a little bit of background on you, but please tell us more about who you are and what you do in your own words.
I am a former teacher. My family had a restaurant here in our town, so a former restaurant owner. We sold our restaurant in 2001. There were a lot of outside forces, and so we made the decision to sell, even though it had been in our family since my dad started it in 1946. After that, we had a number of tragedies happen. So my niece, Kendra, at the time was 12, and she had lost her dad, her grandmother, her nanny, who was my mother, and our family dog, a golden retriever named Irish, boom, 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 right in a row. So she was at my house one night. And at this point, I had done a few different things, but I hadn't really figured out what I was going to do after we sold the restaurant, which we did in 2001. And this was 2006. So she's at my house, very tuned into the word cancer. The St. Jude telethon came on, and I'll never forget it. She looked up and she said, "Oh, I have to help those kids." And she just went boom. And she drew a dog, a little dog. She went on my computer right in this office and Googled pet finder. And she came back and she said, "His name's going to be Trouble and he's going to help kids." And that's what's happening. Like one of those divinely inspired moments you hear about on Oprah. That's what it was.
Oh, fantastic. So then tell us about that bridge from that moment to then you coming in and creating this toy and books and everything since.
Well, it was when I say divinely inspired, I was propelled to do something with this character. Kendra and I she wrote a comic book strip about a little puppy who was abandoned in New York City, actually, we don't know why, rescued by a nanny character. And then he in turn would go to help other puppies going through a tough time. So that's the story. And people were relating to the look of the dog. If you look at Trouble, he has a ring around his eye. He's a series of circles. His eye, his nose, his body shape kind of drew people in. So I just kept thinking, gee, I think there's something here. Then we wrote a coloring book. So we had a little medallion made with Trouble's image on it. And what started to happen was kids would rub the medallion and say it made them feel better. I thought, ooh. So I had a neighbor who knew a gentleman who was a toy manufacturer. So I had a meeting with him after much ado because he didn't want to have anything to do with a dog named Trouble at all. So he finally agreed to meet with me for a few minutes, and he looked at the medallion and he looked at the coloring book, and I will never forget this either. And he looked up and he said, I think you've got something here. And I thought, wow, because he was a big cheese. And he said, you need to have a plush dog made and you need to write a children's book. Well, I ran a restaurant. I sold clams and beer. I didn't know what I was doing. So he connected me with his manufacturer overseas, who would never have spoken to me if it wasn't for that connection. And fast forward, these type of circumstances just kept happening. Is that I would come to a crossroads, I would meet someone who would help. It was like there was a big, and still is, big foot in my back pushing me forward. And all along the way, kids would say, once we had a plush Trouble, this is Trouble right here. So you can get a feeling for the size.
Okay, if you're watching on YouTube, we get to see Trouble.
Yes. So
very
he's
cute.
18 inches, nose to tail.
Okay.
So he's big.
Sizable, yeah.
Yes. And all throughout this journey is that kids wanted to help other kids. They would say, can you give Trouble to Freddie? He's in a wheelchair at my school. Because I would go to schools and read the book and stuff. Can you give Trouble to, Danny? He fell down and skinned his knee. Didn't need to be a big problem. And I think probably the most impactful story I can tell you, this just kept going with kids getting in touch, having their parents get in touch or whatever. I was at a fair almost at Christmas time a few years ago. And a woman came running up to me and she said, this is Trouble the dog. I said, yeah, it is. She said, I have to tell you a story. She said, my son, his name is Darius, was adopted through Catholic Charities. And he had a really rough start in life. And when we adopted him, Catholic Charities gave him a Trouble dog and a your children's book. I forget how many years ago it was. I think he was maybe 8 or 9 at the time. She said, Trouble's his best friend. He talks to Trouble every night, sleeps with Trouble every night. So he decided, his parents wanted to do something to give back, talk about be the good. And Darius said, what I want to do, I want to give Trouble to kids still in foster care because I know how it feels. I want them to have Trouble with them. So they have purchased, I think they're at 360 dogs at this point and counting. We put a special link to him on our website because he's just such a little powerhouse, And he says to me, you need to tell people that Trouble is a magical dog. Because he talks to Trouble and he says Trouble talks back, answers him.
Oh my gosh, how special is that?
Thank you.
And I'm curious, how did Catholic Charities find out about Trouble to begin with? Was it just through children's literature, or had you reached out to them, or how'd that connection happen?
I think that at that point, I have since formed a foundation, which is a story for another interview. But I think that I reached out to them and brought them some Trouble dogs. Yeah, because that was way back when. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I love these good news moments and these good news stories. Any other stories you'd like to share from when you mentioned going into schools to read the books to the kids?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I've been to a bunch of schools, and I'm actually going tomorrow to a wonderful school. I love going here. It's North Shore Consortium. And the children there, may have a difficulty here and there, and they are so welcoming and so all over Trouble the dog. So I'm going to go in tomorrow and read, we have a third children's book that introduces a new character. So I'm going to go in and talk to them tomorrow. And again, they will say, like, they will sit with trouble in their laps and they will hand trouble to a child who may be having a, you know, a little bit of a bad day. Last night, I just got a note from an educator in Rhode Island, actually, in Providence. And she said, I need to tell you that one of our kindergarten children was having a tough emotional day. And she said something like, in trouble, thank you for being there. So trouble saved the day. And that happens all the time. I could tell you story. I could sit here for 3 days and tell you stories.
I love it so much. Now, I'm sure that throughout growing this character and the whole business around it and writing the books and promoting the books and sharing, there have also been, for lack of a better word, trouble spots along the way.
Yes.
Are there any like quotes or mantras that you have found that have helped you through?
You know, one of them is, well, there are two. One of them is to just never, ever, ever give up. And to give you an example, when we were first introduced to this gentleman's overseas manufacturer, they were terrific. I dealt with a woman, she was great. She left to have a baby and my next contact was not as great. So I thought, oh, why can't I just have trouble made in America? What's the big deal? It's a really big deal. So I had to really be a stubborn Irish girl. And I worked 6 months, all day, every day, trying to get someone to talk to me, meet with me. People would say, you can't afford to work with us. Your numbers aren't big enough, whatever. So ultimately, I connected with a wonderful woman in Arizona who manufactures Trouble now. So Trouble is I think, one of the very, very few plush animals made right here in this country. If you flip over your stuffed animals, you'll see that they're made, you know, wherever, but not here in America. And she said, let's figure this out. Let's talk and figure it out, which is exactly what we did. So I had to never, ever, ever give up, number one. And a second quote that really resonated with me, I just learned the other day, and it's by a retired admiral named William McRaven. And his quote, he wrote a book, and one quote in his book is, hope is the most powerful force in the universe. That works for me.
That's good.
We actually have a character named Hope, so maybe that's part of the reason.
It's a good one. It really is.
Is that a good one?
Yeah, I love that. So Sheila, something that's come to mind, you know, kind of taking it off of the normal questions here. Because you went from teaching and then working at a restaurant to this whole different world of working with children's literature and sick children and distressed children. How has this changed your life?
It has made me more appreciative of our children. I'm so honored to be able to work with them. And anytime I have a day where I think, oh, you know, what am I going to do next? Or, you know, whatever, I will get a message from a child about trouble. And so kids really, I don't have children. I've never been married, you know, just never met the right person at the right time. And so it's almost like I have thousands of children now that, you know, I'm still connected to. So that's how it's changed my life.
Oh, wonderful. Sheila, I have one more question for you that I've been asking all my guests lately, and it's always so interesting to hear the responses. If someone came to you, and maybe they have, and said, I want to make a difference, I want to do something to make the world a better place, but I'm overwhelmed, I don't know where to start. Is there any advice you'd give them?
Yes. So I just saw, I wouldn't have been able to think of this a couple of weeks ago. I saw a wonderful news clip And it was about a boy who was adopted also from foster care from a tough start. And his mother thought, his adoptive mother thought, as he was getting older and, getting into trouble and kind of being tough to handle, she said, you need to think of others. You need to give back. What about this? What about that? And he kept saying, no, no, no. And finally she said, how about if you just hold the door open for somebody? And he did. And he saw how it made him feel. And now he's giving back to his community in a really big way. He's an athlete. I forget where he was from. But I think if you just take a little step and see how it makes you feel, then it will literally open the door to allow you to think about, there are just so many people, kids, grown-ups, seniors who really need a helping hand, or even if you just say something to uplift somebody, just tell them to have a nice day, or tell them their hair looks good, whatever it is. It just takes a second. So that would be my advice. Start small.
Oh, fantastic. I was just listening to an interview a couple of weeks ago where they were talking about the studies of the psychology of all of that too. Like by us complimenting someone else with sincerity or holding that door open, it also gives us such a boost of those feel-good hormones. So it's just such a mutual feel good all around.
Exactly. Right. And it just, and it just takes a minute. Not everybody has to jump in with 2 feet like I did.
Absolutely. But thank you for jumping in with 2 feet, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
And Sheila, please tell everyone where they can find you and Trouble online.
They can find us at troublethedog.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Trouble the Dog, Trouble and Hope, I believe it is, on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. I mean, we're everywhere and growing. So it's, I'm grateful.
Oh, wonderful. Sheila, thanks so much for being here. And I'm so excited also to continue to follow you in Trouble and see where you go next.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your time. I think this is a wonderful idea.
Thank you, Sheila. Much appreciated.
In taking classes over the years or observing workout videos, one major piece that is often missing: stressing safety and form. Additionally, group fitness classes are often marketed as being open to all levels, yet how often do instructors not give modifications nor progressions so that each participant truly can get what he or she needs out of the class? So that's why I created the 101 series, which take things back to basics with 3 separate courses: Bar 101, Pilates 101, and HIIT 101, focusing on safety and efficiency so you can maximize your workouts. Be confident when you step into a group fitness class or workout on your own. Be strong in your execution of the most common exercises, and be proud of yourself for taking these huge steps forward on your health journey. Check it out at bebykate.com. The link is in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening to Be the Good with Kate Chericello. Whether you're listening on YouTube or via podcast, it would mean the world if you liked, subscribed, and or left a review. You heard about the good? Now go out and be the good in your life this week. If you have stories of good news that need to be shared, please send me a message. Thanks again, and have a great week.